Welcome to our webinar on outperforming the orthopedic market with integrated supply chain solutions. Today's webinar will explore the ways in which integrated supply chain solutions support OEMs, freeing them to concentrate on what makes them competitive in the market. I'm Carolyn Lowell with BoneZone, and presenting today are three leaders from Lincotek Medical. Gary Snipes is Senior Director of Sales, who leads the Manufacturing Services Sales team in the US. He is joined by Brett George, who is a sales manager focused on expanding customer relationships for casting, additive manufacturing, machining, and coating technologies. And our third speaker is Tyler Erse, who is the plant manager overseeing Lincotek Medical's Dayton facility. Before we get started, I would like to say a couple comments about Lincotek Medical. The company is a global manufacturer providing full-service medical device development and manufacturing across orthopedic markets. With a focus on innovation and speed to market, Lincotek Medical guides OEM customers through every step of the process, from ideation to high-volume production. Thank you to Lincotek for sponsoring today's webinar. I'd like to hand it over to Gary to start our presentation.
Thank you very much. Carolyn, thank you very much for the introduction and to Ortho World for hosting this. And an especially big thank you to everyone who's participating in our webinar today. We look forward to talking about the integrated supply chain for med devices, and we hope that you find it interesting. Just to get us kicked off, our company vision is to bring value and great experience to our customers. And to achieve this, we listen to our customers and reflect on past experiences and projects. As we all know, quality and delivery are always fundamentally important. However, we're always looking for ways to do more for our customers. And as a result, we found that this service with the integrated supply chain solution is one that we are pursuing to bring more value to our customers and make that experience better. It's where we manage as much of the supply chain for our customers as they like, the whole thing or just part of the supply chain. And this is what we're going to discuss today. So to start out with a problem statement, the med device business is very rewarding, both financially and personally. It's a great market to be in, and it's especially good to be in a career that helps people recover from health challenges. But it's a tough business to establish and run. Making all the moving parts run smoothly is quite complex, while it's essential to maintain close links with customers and end users, the patients. When built appropriately, those supply chains are very, very powerful tools. The entire medical industry is under a great deal of change, and that's certainly an understatement. It's impacting hospitals and OEMs that make the products for the hospitals. Hospitals are doing more with less and under pressure for financial performance. This contradicts the need for the greater focus on patient outcomes. So hospitals are certainly being squeezed. This in turn puts pressures on OEMs. They're supporting customers by being more and more flexible and innovative while keeping costs contained. OEMs, as they're becoming more focused on operational performance, have found supply chain to be a critical element of this. Regulatory requirements must be met, tight integration with customers maintained while positioning themselves against constant competition. So supply chain done right, it can be a competitive weapon with the ability to encourage innovation, ramp capacity, put new technology into the market quickly, and allow companies to focus on what they do best. So to accomplish this, OEMs are evaluating what they do and how they apply their resources. An outcome of their core competency evaluation is likely to lead to some mix of internal and external manufacturing capability. OEMs who use external resources are confronted with a complex supply chain. There are companies of all sizes and shapes with differing levels of regulatory expertise, capacity, and execution. Managing the technical side of the supply chain is only part of it. There's more than just issuing purchase orders. It's about setting up the right sort of design for manufacturability and design for supply chain, getting products launched, ramped, and managing them on an ongoing basis, all while maintaining regulatory compliance. Making a supply chain means working with several different companies. This is a basic example illustrating the complexity. It's somewhat of an eye chart, and it's kind of meant to be because it really shows how complicated it can be working with these different companies. in order to get products manufactured. This is a push system where various suppliers pass along their outputs, which results in a net end state. The delivery date is driven by the supply base with accountability passed between the various companies. The OEM, as they're accomplishing this, are managing different relationships with these different companies. They have long-term agreements, forecasts, and purchase orders, all which need to be coordinated amongst these different touch points. And the OEM manages these relationships, drives the collaboration between all these parties, managing all their commitments and outcomes. This is where we start to talk about how we will address the problem. And I'll get it set up and hand it over to Tyler. But just a couple of comments. Our company has a lot of experience developing and manufacturing med devices over a broad range of product types. We have internal capabilities. We've worked closely with partner companies where we don't have capability to bring an overall solution. Our experience in development and registration of med devices and their manufacturing launch gives us firsthand experience with concurrent engineering and putting the pieces together to construct a winning manufacturing life cycle for med devices. So we have a pretty good idea of the ins and outs of getting products to market and successful ongoing production. We've also learned a great deal about how to coordinate all these different resources and timelines. We have various sites throughout the world and work with companies in various locations and several different companies. We took a look at how we coordinate our own business and with outside suppliers and decided that we can apply many of these practices to solutions for our customers, finding what is good for the entire supply chain. How you apply your resources is often as important as having great resources. So with this, I'm going to hand you over to Tyler, who will tell us how we decided to implement our solution.
Thanks, Gary. At Lincotek Medical, our vision for an integrated supply chain means a single point of contact and a single purchase order for all our customers. We start with our customers' needs, and as the primary supplier, we develop and manage a solution unique to that product. The solution may be entirely in-house, including development, casting, machining, coating, or even additive manufacturing, but also requires the use sometimes of other sub-tier suppliers within our own supply chain network. Regardless, this alleviates the burden and resources needed for supply chain management from our customers. When our customers place a PO with Lincotek Medical, they'll receive a complete, finished deliverable at their facility with no hassle included. Simply a quality product delivered on time. This simplified process allows our customers to operate more efficiently with fewer resources, leading to greater profitability. Lincotek Medical's vast supply chain network includes capabilities within ourselves, our own facilities, as I mentioned, design, development, castings, additive manufacturing, machining, coating, as well as a multitude of approved suppliers that are external to us. Our supply chain network is constantly being added to and revised based on our customers' needs and objectives, as well as regularly reviewed supplier performance with regards to both quality and delivery, to ensure that we have a robust and strong supply base of suppliers that we know we can work with and count on. We may even include our own customers' resources in the process as needed, whether that's a casting facility or coating or some other items that are needed. Within the supply chain, we manage a magnitude of processes and often coordinate with multiple vendors for any given project. For our customers, they only need to work with a single point between their needs and the entirety of the supply chain to ensure a quality product is delivered on time. And the last but not least benefit to this model is that it creates a true pull system from the customer all the way back to the original raw material vendor, which is the most efficient and cost-effective way to operate. If the customer had to manage all of these vendors on its own, as you saw on Gary's previous chart, it would be more like a push system, where the work is pushed or moved from one external vendor to the next, causing further delays in scheduling, as well as extended lead time and added cost, as each supplier wants to tack on their own profits along the way. So seeing what an efficient, high-performance supply chain looks like, you can see it greatly simplifies what that previous relationship interaction would be, from the OEM to who they have to work with to get that finished deliverable. Looking more holistically at the supply chain from the customer point of view, you only have now a single supplier, Lincotek Medical, that you need to partner with in order to receive that finished deliverable. This means one supply agreement, one quality agreement, one forecast, one purchase order, and one single point of contact. If they were trying to manage the entire supply chain themselves, each and every one of those agreements, pieces of information, would need to be completed, managed, and maintained for each and every supplier involved in the process, which sometimes can take an entire team of resources just to manage on their own. This simplified approach to medical device manufacturing, as I stated before, leads to a pull system. So that finished device timing drives the scheduling of production and even development, even MPI potentially, all the way upstream. It also creates clearly defined accountability, simplified regulatory compliance, faster speed to market by way of reduced lead times, improved collaboration, and a greater focus on our core competencies, and an overall more efficient process for everyone involved. So with that, I'll hand it over to Brett, who will show us some examples of what this integrated supply chain can look like in action.
Thanks, Tyler and Gary. Appreciate the information that you've shared, and also would like to thank everybody for attending the webinar today. We've chose a couple of examples here to share with everyone that really are great examples of how the integrated supply chain solution has worked for a couple of examples here that we're going to tell you about. The first example that we have is a company that has an existing total ankle replacement system. This system was actually designed by the Lincotek Medical group a few years back. And this product was manufactured and distributed outside the US market. The product has been very successful, and the company wanted to refresh the system considering input from their surgeon base. And this was important to incorporate that feedback to make improvements for the refreshment of that system. The goal ultimately was to redesign the system and release that into the US market. So a couple of problems were presented to us by this company, and a couple of problems that were brought to us. The original supply chain showed significant cost increases over the past couple of years, specifically to the castings and to the machining and finishing of those castings. Casting prices alone had increased approximately 40%. And we know that's always a huge hit for the customer, especially in an environment where we're trying to reduce cost and save money for those products. Machining and finishing together was a large percentage of that total cost. So as we discussed earlier, with pressure from the market to reduce costs, that always seems to come from a variety of different angles, and that's a real pain point for our customers. The second problem was the number of products that had to move from supplier to supplier. These are the touch points that we referred to earlier. Every touch point in the supply chain that's managed by the customer adds cost and requires additional resources to manage those. The last point and the last problem that we had to focus on is the soft cost that we just alluded to and the lead time associated with that. The lead times can extend out with those additional touch points. Again, the more touch points you have, the more challenging it becomes to manage without an integrated supply chain solution. So the solution for this example that we're sharing with you now included a redesign completely managed by the Lincotek design group. They managed the DFM activity, which included rapid castings, prototyping of instruments, and testing of the complete system in cadaver labs. And also that included mechanical testing as well. The Lincotek team is collaborating closely with the customer for ultimate 510(k) submission and approval. And this integrated supply chain solution we used 3 of our sites to complete the manufacturing for this system. This included Lincotek Medical Portland, Oregon facility, which is where we do our castings, and also the Dayton, Ohio and Logan, Utah machining facilities to execute on the production side. So the product will be released and manufactured as started already. I think the key points here is that Lincotek is managing one purchase order from the customer. This results in shorter lead time and shorter time to market. Ultimately, the faster that the OEM can get their product to the market, the faster we can all make our money, right? And I think the improvement that we've seen here was approximately about a 20% improvement. So this example, the first one here, is really, for me personally, one of my first major successes that I was personally involved in with the integrated supply chain. And it was really a fantastic experience to see how this played out. Our team has worked closely with the customer, and this was absolutely essential to the success. In our next example, we're going to share another one here with everyone. This next customer that we have chosen is another example of our integrated supply chain solution that is a legacy customer of Lincotek Medical. This customer is a spine company that engaged us to design and manufacture new systems that were produced using our additive manufacturing. As some of you know already, Lincotek Medical has been a leader in the additive manufacturing market for many years. The customer had a set of problems that really made this example unique. The first challenge was to use existing instrumentation that the customer had for other product. And the goal was to integrate that into the new product that was produced with additive manufacturing. This was part of the strategy to address the length of time to market release. The aggressive schedule required streamlined attack and execution. As you all probably know from experience, there are many instances where the timeline for reaching commercial launch can take 1 to 2 years. With our ability to execute activities concurrently, this timeline can be significantly reduced. The solution for the customer example included design and close collaboration with our customer to meet the aggressive timeline. The design for manufacturing and design for supply chain work was intense and required a few iterations. Devices had to go through mechanical testing, and the data was collected for the 510(k) submission and ultimate approval. This involved several sites, again, in the Lincotek Medical integrated supply chain. The devices were produced in our Memphis, Tennessee facility via additive manufacturing and subsequently machined at our Dayton, Ohio and Logan, Utah sites. This also included additional instrumentation set builds along with the devices. The outcome for this example, customer example, was quite impressive. The product received regulatory approval and is now in commercial launch. The overall timeline was less than 12 months, which is absolutely impressive. Very extraordinary accomplishment by Lincotek and the integrated supply chain solution in collaboration with our customer. As with the first example that I shared with you, I was personally involved in the entire process, and it was really impressive to see this play out. The planning and execution was second to none. I hope these examples have given further insight to our audience and how the integrated supply chain solution can help you and make the best use of our solution. Again, our goal is to provide the services that you need when you need it. With that said, I'm going to turn this back over to Gary for a few closing comments and a brief summary.
Thank you very much, Brett. Thank you, Tyler, earlier as well. And yes, so to wrap it up here, just to go back to the beginning of the presentation, where we're talking about our vision, which is to bring customers greater value and a greater customer experience. We've developed this integrated supply chain service to help our customers make tighter connections with their customers, ultimately supporting delivery of better outcomes for patients. So for us, it's not just about the resources that you have available, but how these resources are applied. Just saying it again a different way, it's not just about what you have, but what you do with it and how you apply it for the best outcome. You know, as we develop this solution and other solutions as well, it's really about listening to and working closely with our customers and suppliers to develop a winning solution to the challenge of medical device manufacturing. For us, it's a journey, and we're always exploring ways to improve and bring more value. We're constantly learning and improving, and we're committed to providing our customers a great experience. It's a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding to explore and collaborate with others to find out the best way to do things. So we really do appreciate your participation today very much, and we look forward to your questions and inputs. Now I'm going to hand it over to Carolyn for the Q&A session.
Great. Thank you for your perspective on the complexity of the orthopedic supply chain, as well as sharing how you are helping OEMs. I do have several questions here that I think you will be interested in addressing. So first up, Tyler, I'll ask this one to you. How is accountability consolidated across a complex supply chain?
Thanks, Carolyn. That's a great question. And the answer to it is one that is certainly more easily said than solved, right? Because supply chains are very complex, a lot of moving people and parts. In a traditional outsourced supply chain, as we showed earlier from the OEM's perspective, each external operation would need to be managed by the customer itself, and thus each supplier would need to be managed individually. As we talked about, that takes a lot of resources and a lot of interaction to keep all those pieces moving. And those suppliers then each have to have, like I said, purchase orders and timing to be confirmed, as well as the accountability to make sure they're all doing the things that they're supposed to be doing and there's alignment. All of which adds, as we said, extra cost and time in the manufacturing process that the end user may not be willing to accept. And with an integrated supply chain like what Lincotek Medical offers, all that burden, responsibility, and accountability are pulled, if you will, from that single primary supplier by the customer. So from there, we as the primary supplier would hold our secondary supplier accountable, and they in turn would potentially, as needed, hold their tertiary suppliers accountable, and so on and so forth. So it moves down the chain, and when that integrated supply chain functions as a true team, all working together collaboratively, then all the parties are aligned to the same simple goal of delivering that quality product on time. In that scenario, it isn't necessary for customer or even the primary supplier to constantly remind and reprimand those sub-tier suppliers of the criticality of the quality and timing of the project, as that's given and it's simply in the DNA of how we operate every day. And that's all about having that strong supply base that's constantly kept up to date and managed very closely, so that we know that all of our suppliers hold those same values and just as all of our facilities do.
Thank you. How can the integrated supply chain model bring products to market more quickly? Brett?
I'll take that one, Carolyn.
Great.
This is Brett. So I think that's another great question, and it really lends itself. So we talk about integrated supply chain, and as in the examples that I shared earlier, when we talk about getting products to the market in a quicker time frame, the fact that we're in control of the supply chain internally, and in some cases there may even be outside suppliers that we're managing, we're able to work concurrently and run activities in parallel. So when you run in parallel, that obviously can save time. And when we compare this to the traditional supply chains that OEMs have had to manage, there was maybe more of a in-series approach where one was reliant on the other and you couldn't start those until the other one was complete. So when we talk about running things concurrently, we're able to involve let's say the final manufacturing from the beginning of the process. And this collaboration internal to the supply chain is what allows us to do that and get the products to the market quicker.
Can part of the supply chain solution be engaged, meaning can just casting only be engaged, or is an entire solution required for this model?
Hey, Carolyn, Gary here. I'll take that one. Sure, absolutely. The model is very flexible. So if a customer wants to engage the entire supply chain service so that the end product is delivered to the customer, we are very happy to do that. Or if the customer wants to manage things a different way, where they're just using part of our solution, then we'll be happy to work with them as well. And the way it would work is, if it's a partial solution, the last point of service that we would provide in our company would act as the lead, and everything that is upstream from that would use this pull system that we described earlier, where they're working with the different suppliers and operating off of a singular date and set of requirements to drive those deliverables. And then, of course, interfacing downstream with their counterparts, either with a customer or with other companies as well. So our idea here is to put solutions together for customers that work. And as I stated earlier, it's either the whole solution or at a point that makes sense for the customer along the way.
Thanks for that explanation. The next question is, how is forecasting handled?
I can speak to that, Carolyn. This is Tyler. With an integrated supply chain, forecasts are pulled from the lowest level suppliers all the way up from the end user, because we all understand these types of things are required for us to be successful as suppliers. In a strong collaborative relationship, each link in the chain has an already established regular review of these forecasts and upcoming demand. And thus, really, you shouldn't have to push or pull from either side. Obviously, the forecasts, like I said, come from the end customer. But once that is given, all parties should be in sync with one another, as that forecast is shared up and down the entire supply chain to ensure that there's no surprises or things that no one saw coming. I think lastly, it's worth noting that forecasts are more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. They're signals and indicators that have trends and swings that can belie very significant information and events that are upcoming. It goes without saying that obviously the integrity and accuracy of these forecasts are of the utmost importance. But in my experience, it's that strong relationship and collaboration of working together and regular routine communication between each supplier and their customer that makes the forecasting process and review so critical. And what I mean by that is that each customer does their own forecast a little bit differently. And there can be common trends or ways that the data can shift that send certain signals. But if, as a supplier, you don't have that history or that strong working relationship, you may not fully understand or see some of those signals, and you could lead to either over or under reactions to the data that's being presented and shown, which can create confusion and further issues, both short and long term. That's why at Lincotek, we put such a great importance and stress on the concept of a team-based approach. And that extends beyond the walls of our facilities to all of our customers and external suppliers as well. Because we know that if we have the mentality and manner of doing business in that way, that we'll all be successful.
Thank you, Tyler. Brett, I think I will ask this next question to you. How do development projects transition to manufacturing?
Yeah, that's a great question, Carolyn. And I think we've alluded to some of this previously, but I would like to clarify a little bit on this. As we shared in the examples of a couple of customer projects that we had, we were under very tight timelines, and it was very key that these projects transition from design to manufacturing in a very flawless way. I think when we talk about design for manufacturing and design for supply chain, that's all part of that. When we talk about the concurrent activities that happen between the different parts of our supply chain solution. And I think something that I would like to speak to specifically with this question is that in order to truly have an effective integrated supply chain solution, it's more than just a name, it's more than just a title. The company that's providing the integrated supply chain solution truly has to be integrated. And I think that's something that our group is certainly heavily involved in creating that true integration within our group to be able to have those open lines of communication, to have that collaboration that's required between the sites and bring the projects from idea to actual production, and bring that to the customer in a time frame that gets them to the market as quickly as possible. There's been some other companies in the past who've tried to bring integrated supply chain solution to the market, and because they weren't truly integrated, they weren't necessarily completely successful, and that leads to long lead times, and that's delays for the customer and the OEM. So our goal is to be truly integrated internally, and that will lead to a full integrated supply chain solution that is successful.
Thank you. Gary, when we're talking about integrated supply chains, can outside suppliers be managed, or is it only internal sites?
Yeah, sure. It is it's both, really. It's outside and internal suppliers that are used to develop a solution that's specific to a customer. And each one of those inputs needs to be competitive and needs to meet the objectives of the project. What we're looking to do is provide a common set of requirements and objectives that everybody is driving towards. And as Tyler mentioned, when he talked about how the forecasting is handed off and that there's open communication with suppliers, and Brett talked about what we're doing internally to coordinate our sites. What we're looking to do is create a team-based approach, no matter where the resources reside, if they're internal to the company or they're external, but everybody is on the same team to accomplish the objectives of a successful program. So, internal, external, everything that's needed to meet the objectives. Our goal isn't just to put work in a particular place. Our goal is to find the right solution for the customer.
Great. Well, I think that is actually a great response to end on. So thank you, Gary, Brett, and Tyler, for sharing your expertise and insight today. And also thank you to those who attended our webinar. You can learn more about Lincotek Medical at lincotekmedical.com. If you're going to AAOS in San Diego, you can meet with Lincotek in booth 2925 next week. So thank you again to everybody who participated in our webinar. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.